Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the Benchwarmer Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Raffi, and as always, coming off an amazing trip to Washington, D.C., had a great time in our nation's capital, and now it is time. It is one of the most wonderful times of the sports calendar. March Madness is here. I made a declaration in mid-January when my semester started that all I had to do was make it to March, and boys, March Madness has already started yesterday as of the recording of the podcast on Wednesday, March 15th, but the real fun begins tomorrow. Before we get into that, boys, how are we?
All right, we talk about the college football committee being stupid. Why isn't Rutgers in the bracket? I'm sorry. Yes, Rutgers sucked the last month, but they still played well enough. They beat Michigan. They should have been in
the first round of the NIT. I don't want to hear it.
Oh, no,
Okay,
that's not
because who the hell cares about the NIT? Honestly, who cares about the NIT?
Listen to this. As a Fordham fan, right? We lost in the A10 semifinals. Yeah, it kind of sucks.
Yes, that was sad.
We're a team that won 25 games, and we didn't get into the NIT, which is absolutely absurd. So
that was absurd, too. That was
ridiculous.
absurd. They should have gotten in.
Yeah. Give the teams a recognition. NIT sucks. I'm done with the NIT.
I see we have some...
Never talk about the NIT again.
I see you have some cold feelings towards the NIT, which I agree with. I think the NIT is really stupid. You call the winner of the NIT bracket, they're still a loser, so it doesn't matter. Who cares? Seeing Michigan in the NIT, though, that made my day. As you know, avid Michigan hater right here. Why? I don't know. I just don't like them. Anywho, Davian, I hate to say this, Rutgers, after this past month, did not deserve to make it. I think they could have made a good case over Nevada. I think Nevada, potato patata. I think they could have definitely gotten in over that and right now they're looking like it because they are not showing up versus Arizona State currently as we're recording this podcast. But anyways, what we're going to do is we're going to go region by region. We're going to break down what our thoughts are. We're not going game by game because then this podcast is going to be way too long with all of our brilliant analysis on each game. So we're just going to talk about any discrepancies that we have, teams that we have going all the way we'll discuss right after. But let's just hop over to the Midwest. Let's start with the South because that's where our number one overall seed is, the Alabama Crimson Tide. Future school that will be hosting future alumni, Theodore Fernandez. So this side of the bracket, the square of the bracket, was something that was very interesting because it was highly anticipated that Kansas or Houston was going to be the number one overall seed until both of them wound up losing their respective conference tournaments in the championship game, Kansas to Texas, Houston to Memphis. We will talk about Memphis later on in the podcast. So if you guys want to check out, I think it's the East or the West region, you guys can skip to that. Anywho, this is Bama. Bama is the number one overall seed. Number one overall seeds have not done well over the past couple of years. See Gonzaga as the prime example. Virginia a couple of years ago.
You want a prime example, Virginia losing to UMBC.
Right, and although I do not have Alabama losing to Texas A&M CC, I still have Alabama going very deep. And I'll bring up who I have winning, but major things that I do have come in the lower half of this bracket. I think all the higher seeds winning except for West Virginia. And then in the second round, I have a little bit of chaos. I refuse to quit on Creighton. I will die on this ship. I believe in Creighton. They're going to go on somewhat of a run. I have them beating Baylor. I'm so sorry.
Arizona ends their run.
Baylor, I appreciate the money that you won me, but I have to go Creighton. Baylor has not looked good over the late, and Creighton they're just so close. They look so good the past month, earlier on in the month. They looked good in January. They've shown that they can play well consistently over a couple of games. I really just have to keep buying in on this Creighton team.
No.
Is it an addiction? Yes, but I'd rather be addicted to Creighton than addicted to drugs. So I'm going to take Creighton over Baylor. I have Creighton going all the way to play Alabama in the Elite Eight. And another thing, too, as we know, I've been an avid Michigan hater. But you know who I hate more? Arizona. Arizona goes down to Missouri. I really like how Missouri's played down the stretch.
What are you talking about?
Arizona has good size, but give me the Tigers.
Okay.
No.
So Arizona's a second round exit. According to you, got them losing that second round.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
No, they lose to Bama in the Elite Eight. Come on.
Okay. Let me say this. I agree with you with Creighton. First of all, NC State is a joke of an opponent. North Carolina State should not be in this tournament. Rutgers should have gotten in on over them, honestly, because
Thank
I
you.
the fact that NC State made the tournament and didn't even have to play in the first four, absolutely absurd. The
they
team's
got
horrible.
smacked by Clemson, and Clemson lost to
Yeah,
Louisville. So by numerous theorems, mathematical theorems, we can by transitive property, NC State's terrible. They're really bad.
yeah. Okay, so second of all, Baylor is another one of the most overrated teams here. I would not be surprised, and I've picked it in a bunch of my brackets, if UC Santa Barbara upsets Baylor in the first round. I am not high on the Bears this year. I think Creighton has a very, very easy path to the Sweet 16. And look, Arizona's a great team, and I'm going back and forth between that potential matchup. I think both teams have national championship potential, honestly. You can hate on Arizona all you want, but they beat UCLA to get the Pac-12 title. I think they should have been seeded a little higher. They should have been one of the higher two seeds in the bracket, honestly. And I think that Baylor or Arizona could both make a case and make a trip to the Elite Eight.
I have Baylor losing because the main thing that concerns me is the reason why I fell in love with that Baylor team a couple of years ago. And once again, shout out to Baylor University. You will always have a special place in my heart. Was their defense. They were so good defensively. This is
Davion
not the
Mitchell, he
same
was a beast.
defensive Baylor team. They are awful this year in defense, and
Guys,
defense wins championships, especially in terms of the NCAA. So right now with Baylor just not being consistent enough on defense, that's a big flaw that I have in my analysis of their team.
Yeah, Scott Drew's done a great job with this team. He's a very good coach, but just he doesn't.
They don't have the
He's
pieces.
got them to play the best they could, but they don't have what the past teams had. I'm with you on that.
Right.
Yeah.
The one other thing I got to say on this region before we give our final four pick out of here, College of Charleston was, in my eyes, and we're going to talk about this again because there's another team in their exact same boat. I thought they were one of the best mid-major teams, along with this other team that's pretty obvious at this point, where I was willing to pick them to win a game, maybe even two, but they just got a brutal draw. Like, San Diego State, people are hating on the Mountain West Conference, saying, oh, they haven't won a tournament game since 2018. San Diego State, I think, is like top 25 in the net. They are winning games. They do a lot of things well, to the point where I just can't pick Charleston to win, but that will be a fun 5-12, as will Virginia Furman. Everyone seems to be picking Furman, trying to be trendy and cool, but I think they've got a point. I think Furman pulls the upset there.
I don't like Virginia, but I still have Virginia winning that matchup. Going on your Charleston versus San Diego State before I throw this over to Davian so we can give our final four picks. San Diego State, number 14 in the net, and Charleston is a team that if they had played a different 5 seed, maybe not Duke, which we'll get into Oral Roberts because I liked Oral Roberts a lot as a potential 5 or 12, but unfortunately they're playing Duke. We'll get into that shortly. San Diego State, I was very, very ready to give them the St. Mary's cold shoulder and just have them lose in the first round. They've looked very, very good in the Mountain West tournament and down the stretch. They lost to Boise State a couple of weeks ago, but aside from that, they've been on an absolute roll. I have to pick San Diego State here. I really want to pick Charleston, and I would love to see Charleston win. This isn't a very valuable spot. Like if San Diego State loses, this doesn't really hurt me too much. Again, the real thing is you need your Final Four. But yeah, at the end of the day, I have San Diego State winning and going on to the Elite Eight. Davian, Sweet 16. My bad.
Yeah, I was gonna say Alabama.
Bama. Roll Tide.
Are we all on Bama?
Yep. They go in the Final Four.
Roll Tide.
Roll
We are
Tide.
all on
Roll
Bama
Tide.
on the Final Four. Hopefully, we all don't have Alabama winning it all. Is that foreshadowing? Maybe. You got to keep watching to find out. Or you can just skip. That's fine too. But we appreciate you viewing.
Yeah, you can just skip to the end. We don't care.
Moving on to the Midwest, which should have had the number 1 overall seed until they lost to Memphis on Sunday, Selection Sunday. Houston is a team that you might say, Raffi, you are always very against non-Power 5 plus Big East schools. You must have Houston losing early because you don't like them because you're going to give them the Gonzaga treatment. And I'd say this. I've had Gonzaga going on deep runs in years past. I've always had Gonzaga going on a deep run because they've always been really good. I just haven't had them win. Houston, I have them going very deep in this tournament. I actually had them I sound like a Cowboys fan. Remember back in 2021 when I had Baylor and Houston in the Final Four? Oh boy, just wait 20 years and that's the only thing, and that's all I'm going to be spewing. It'll be on a VHS tape, that podcast. Anywho, I have Houston going very deep. I don't really have much else to say. Texas A&M is a team that could cause some trouble. They looked really, really good, and ever since that one person on TikTok, I just want to shout them out, told me to take a look at Texas A&M after I uploaded my bracketology. I've taken note of them, and they've put a lot. I've gained a lot of respect for that team. I think they're playing really well, and I would not be shocked if we see Texas A&M go on a potential deep run.
You're talking about
Houston.
Houston, the Final Four, Davian?
Yep. You got my
Wow,
right there.
We're going to talk about potential deep runs. Let's talk about Kent State. This squad was really good. The Horizon League, it was them and what other team? They were battling back and forth with the team in that conference all year. Can't remember at the moment, but they had a great championship game. Kent State kind of just ran them out of the gym. And Indiana, they're a star-heavy team. I mean, look, Trace Jackson Davis is just absolutely incredible. I don't know if Kent State has an answer for him, but I think the rest of the team is good enough. They have all the makings of a team that can go on the Cinderella run. They can beat Indiana, they can beat Miami, and they can get to the Sweet 16 where they'll run into Houston, who the Marcus Sasser injury just doesn't really scare me. I don't know why. It's like, this is a guy I feel like who's played through so many injuries in his career that I have no doubt that he can do it again. So ironically, like, his history of injuries kind of helps him in this scenario, if you guys get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right? So I got Houston in the Elite Eight, but I do not have them heading in the Final Four. Give me the Texas Longhorns.
No.
Yeah. We got to change it up a little here. Texas, I've picked Texas so many times, and I've gotten burned on Texas so many times, thanks to this man right here, Shaka Smart. He always seemed to disappoint. Well, they've got a new coach now, and I think they can go on a run. I think they can get past A&M or Penn State. Either one would be a tough matchup. I think they can get past Iowa State in the Sweet 16. I think the Cyclones go on a bit of a run, and I think Texas is in Houston.
I'm very disappointed you said this for one specific region, for a reason. Sorry, not region. We're in the West region.
We are.
I have Texas going to the Final Four.
No way.
They were a team that I was a bit off on after they lost to Baylor and lost to TCU in a close game. But TCU, I have a lot of respect for TCU. I don't have TCU going on a deep run this year, unfortunately. We'll get into that when we get to that region. But
you guys are
TCU played a great game, barely beat Texas, was down to the wire. The way Texas overcame adversity and blew out Kansas by 16 and then by 20 points.
That was absolutely shocking.
That is amazing. They handled business again versus TCU. They basically went on a revenge tour. And let's be honest here. Home court advantage, just in general, the fact that Texas might go to a Final Four in Houston, and you can make the argument for Houston, but Texas Longhorn fans are everywhere. They want their team to go to Houston. And if Texas goes to Houston, they're going to be a very, very, very tough out because Texas fans, they haven't been this hyped. They wouldn't be this hyped about their team since the days of Vince Young in college football. Texas,
I was waiting for that.
I have Texas going to the Final Four. I think they're a very good team, and we'll see what happens. Moving on, we're going to go to the East. The East is my chaos side, my chaos region. I'm very excited to talk about this.
Kentucky.
I like many people.
What?
Yep.
I like many people because then I need to hear what Davian's analysis on Kentucky because that's pretty crazy. That's pretty out there. I thought my bracket was crazy. I have Purdue going all the way. No, I'm kidding. I have them losing in the round of 32. Okay. I haven't decided yet. I'm leaning towards Memphis right now because I just think they have a bit more star power and they're more a complete team. FAU, I also think can be Purdue. Purdue is a team that I don't like. I was considering Purdue, but now I'm an avid Purdue hater as well. They were around a 500 team entering the tournament. I had them winning the Big Ten. They won the Big Ten, but still, I just feel off about them right now. I declared them as potential winners earlier on in the early days of February, and they've really done a lot to make me really doubt them. So I wouldn't be shocked if Purdue goes on a deep run, but I had to have a 1 seed lose early some way, shape, or form, and I feel like Purdue is the shakiest one of all of them.
There's always that. Almost every year we have a 1 seed fall in that round of 32. And I'm with you. I just feel like this is the most obvious matchup where the one seed struggling and Memphis and FAU. Because I can see it going either way. I got FAU being the one to take down Purdue in this game, but both of them are playing hot right now. Memphis, we just saw what they did against Houston. FAU has 3 losses on the year. It's just either one of those teams is going to be such a challenge for Purdue. FAU also has a giant center to go and guard
Right.
I forget his name.
Absolutely. And moving on to the bottom half, just before I get into my Elite Eight and then my team that I have going to the Final Four, I do have Kentucky winning a game, Davian, so I'll give you that. I have them losing next to Kansas State. I think Kansas State's a very good team.
What?
It's a first-year head coach. I think Kansas State, I don't think this is their year, but I think that they're very well set up for future years. I'm so sorry to do this to Shaka Smart. I really am. I have them losing to Michigan State in the round of 32.
What?
I trust Todd
What?
Izzo so much. I think Michigan State, they've still been a solid team down the stretch. It's just a feeling, and I can't give you guys any proper reasoning, and this is just how March Madness brackets work sometimes. I can't give you guys a definitive reason or statistic of why I think Michigan State is going to beat Marquette. I've just not felt it for Marquette this entire year. It's a great story. I hope Marquette goes far. I hope they prove me wrong. I like Marquette. I like Marquette. Don't get me wrong.
Well, I have USC beating Michigan State.
I'm with David. If I think USC is going to beat Michigan State, but I think you guys are delusional.
I think then they beat Marquette, which is surprising for me, but I just put it like that. And then I do have Kentucky beating Purdue. I think Kentucky's gonna show up in March. That's all I got.
They've been really good down the stretch. They were the anti-UNC. Both teams had two options. They could either show up and be the teams that they were expected to be earlier on in the season in the AP poll, preseason AP poll, or they could just continue to be terrible. One team decided, you know what, we're going to turn things around. Calipari, there was talks about him leaving or him getting fired. They turned that ship around, and they turned it around to become a 6 seed, which is very impressive given by the fact that they were a first 4 out in a lot of people's bracketologies, including my own. Yeah. UNC, which I will just drag through the grass again, put them through the weeds, they decide to lay down and die. That's all I got to say. There's my UNC thing. I won't go on a rant about them. I do have Kentucky still losing to Kansas State. I am going based upon what I said last week, and I'm applying it again. This Duke team is very well coached. They're playing good down the stretch. They're hot at the right time. I don't like that everyone else is picking Duke going far, but I have Duke going to the Final Four, being Kansas State.
I have Duke losing to Oral Roberts. That's how well I am.
That's what I don't like. That's what scares me. Mm-hmm. I really liked Oral Roberts, and if Oral Roberts played a team like St. Mary's, who's in our 5 seed, I'd have no problem picking Oral Roberts.
I just don't think Duke shows up. I don't think Duke shows up in March. I don't think they have that Coach K mentality anymore. I don't think they show up.
They've won. Have you not watched a single game in the ACC tournament, David? With all due respect.
Okay. Yes, I have, and Duke has been playing great, but it's March. It's different.
But they were winning in March too.
Yeah, but this is mid-March. It's different.
Someone pull up a calendar for Davian because I don't know what's going on here. Look, John Shire has really done everything he could as a coach. I mean, he looks like he's just going to continue riding this program to success. I think Duke makes the Elite Eight. And look, Oral Roberts, that matchup is scary. Duke has a history of early disappointing exits. I mean, Lehigh, Mercer, South Carolina in the second round. But I think they make the Elite Eight. I think get past FAU probably in the Sweet 16. Tennessee is probably the worst 4 seed in this bracket. They're not a threat at all in my book.
Yeah.
Duke to the Elite Eight. Shock. Look, I am a big A10 basketball fan. We know this. Shaka Smart made his start in the A10. So I'm always going to pick Shaka Smart to win games. Now, when he goes to Texas and goes 0-5 in the tournament, that's starting to kind of change the way I thought about it. But now I look at this team, this Marquette team. They just do everything right. They're playing hot right now. They completely ran through the Big Ten. They completely just owned Xavier that whole game in the championship. Them and Duke both are hitting their stride at the right time. They're well coached. They have talent. They have depth. And I think that Duke will face Marquette in the Elite Eight. It'll be one of, if not the best game of this tournament, because I think they match up really, really well. But I'm going to go with the Golden Eagles to move on to Houston into the Final Four.
I respect that. Again, I have no reason other than just a feeling on Marquette, and
Yeah, I hear you.
it's fair.
I
You guys are gonna have picks too. Everyone has picks where it's just a feeling, and they're just gonna choose against it.
And with how random this tournament is, you kind of have to go off that blind feeling sometimes
Right.
because logic never pans out in this tournament.
Exactly.
So,
I unfortunately am not going based off colors because I'm sure that whoever picks based upon colors is definitely gonna somehow go very deep. Also, I don't think a school with red colors has won a March Madness tournament since Louisville in like 2013. That's also something to keep tabs on. But yeah, I have Tennessee bowing out to Duke. I don't like Tennessee. I like Tennessee, but it's the same Tennessee with college football and in years past where you just expect them to blow it at some point, and thus.
well, I got Tennessee. I got Tennessee getting upset round one. I think Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns, they do enough good things. They're not a great Cinderella. I mean, I don't think they're going on a run, but I think they're pulling that first round up.
And I also just want to mention too, Duke. If you look at down the stretch, they've been basically undefeated. They lost to after losing to Virginia. They have essentially won. They not essentially. They've won out, beating teams like Pitt. They beat Miami. They finished it off with a win versus Virginia in a very low scoring, like Big Ten-esque game. Duke is just hitting. They're just right place, right time. They're doing right things.
Duke's winning, and like you said, they're winning in all different kind of ways.
They're beating bad teams
look,
and they're beating the top teams in the ACC. But then again, it's like you're beating like the middle of the pack for the Big 12. But regardless, those are still good wins.
Look, this kid Filipowski, he grew up in my town, right, in Warwick, New York.
He's been great down the stretch.
Yeah, and he, I actually announced him, in a game freshman year. Because the school he transferred to was rivals with the school that I transferred to, so it just happened to work out like that. And we watched him. He didn't look like the real deal. I mean, he was a good player, but he didn't look like anything special to us during that game. And he's taking it to a whole nother level. He's just absolutely insane right now, and he can be a difference maker for this squad.
Finally, moving on to the final one, and we'll see why I left this last but not least for a variety of reasons. We have the defending champs, Kansas. Now, defending champs have very rarely made it out of the Sweet 16. Is that a potential indication of what I have going on? Possibly. We also have Northwestern. Not my alma mater, not the school I go to, but I hold
Your
Northwestern. They are my honorary school. I do go to the University of Illinois, but Northwestern always holds a very special place in my heart. I love Northwestern. I am going to keep things very short and simple. I have UConn beating Kansas. UConn has been one of the best teams down the stretch. I think they are a top 5 team in the net rankings. I think right now they're 12 or 14 right now in the net rankings. Pardon me to check that. They're number 8 right now in the net rankings. They're basically hitting all of the stats. You can choose in the March Madness bracket thing, all the stats you find important. UConn essentially checks off, just beats all those teams by a lot in all those stats. I have UConn going to the Elite 8. I think they played really, really good down the stretch. They lost to Marquette in a very, very close game, tight game that could have gone either way. And aside from that, they have shown earlier on when they started 14-0, they handled out adversity. They went through a little bit of a downswing that happens to a lot of teams. And I think down the stretch, they showed that they can go on a deep potential run. I have UCLA coming out of this region. I don't care about the injuries. I am, unfortunately, whether I like it or not, in love with this UCLA team coming out of this side of the bracket. I have UCLA going to the Final Four.
Very interesting. This has been, without a doubt, the hardest region for me to pick. I mean, this whole
easiest for me. Easiest.
No, okay, you go first then, Damien, if it's you.
Northwestern.
Okay, wow.
Yep.
Okay.
You heard that. Northwestern to the Final Four.
My heart says yes and loves you for that. My brain says, why is this guy talking right now? Why am I going to let this guy talk?
All right.
I will give you the floor.
I think, look, Illinois has been playing really well. So that's why I have them beating Kansas. I have them beating, yes.
Illinois.
My bad.
No,
I have Illinois beating Kansas, then beating UConn, and then going against Northwestern in the Elite Eight, and then Northwestern going through. I don't see Gonzaga going on a run. I have them losing to TCU, and then I have of course Northwestern beating UCLA, and then Northwestern of course just ends up in the
Illinois Northwestern in an Elite Eight basketball game.
Yeah.
Wow.
call me a bad student. I have Illinois losing to Arkansas. I think Arkansas just looked.
Yeah, look, how do you pick against your alma mater, the school you're at? That's crazy.
You know why? You know why I do this?
Why?
It paid off when I picked Baylor. I'm sorry to keep going back to this. Everyone in my pool naturally picked Illinois going to the Final Four that year and winning it all. So I had to pick Illinois bowing out early, which I actually did pick.
Well,
them bowing out
they
early.
played Loyola Chicago. I think I knew at least that was going to be.
Oh yeah,
that was
absolutely. I saw it too, but that was just something where it's like you have to. Sometimes you just gotta get the blinders off. I took off the blinders. I didn't like how they handled business versus Michigan. I didn't like that it went to double overtime. I'm happy it did because it was a great game for me to go to, but it wasn't a game where I felt confident in Illinois. Like, yeah, they're a team that can fight hard. Yes, they're still a solid team, but they're not as good. They don't have that guy like Kofi or Io in years past that they've had. That's just like the dog, the guy who can just like bring everyone together, be the guy you can really rely on. They're a very solid team overall wise. They have good depth, but they just don't have that guy who you can just rely on. And so that's why I just don't have Illinois going too far into the tournament, which is fine. I don't care.
With all due respect, Raffi, you're wrong.
Who would have guessed? Who would have guessed Davian would be telling I'm wrong for not having Northwestern Illinois going on a deep run?
You're wrong. That's what I'm saying.
All right. Here's why this is the hardest region for me. First of all, Kansas. I mean, I saw them win a national championship last year. We all did. They got Grady Dick is balling out right now. They have so many just big-time players. Bill Self out of the hospital. He was ready to coach. And they've got a clear path to the Sweet 16. Illinois is not beating them. I'm sorry, Davey. At the bottom of the bracket, Gonzaga has gone under the radar all year, right? For once, for the first time in about 4 years, they don't have pressure on them. Everyone's just like, yeah, you know what? They're a 3 seed. Everyone's written them off. They are playing like a championship team right now. And yeah, you can say West Coast Conference schedule, whatever, but the fact of the matter is they beat Alabama earlier in the year. Their losses earlier in the year were good. I mean, they dropped a bunch of games, but they were against good teams like Texas. Gonzaga's just very dangerous looking to me. Now, Davian, you're going to talk about Northwestern. I really, really, really see the possibility of Northwestern being able to beat UCLA in the round of 32. And that's just, I don't know, UCLA has too many teams they have to go through. So I'm going to say Gonzaga makes it out of that bottom half of the bracket into the Elite Eight. The top half is where it gets tough. UConn. Early in the year, I thought UConn was absolutely going to be my national championship pick. I mean, they started out, 14-0?
Yeah.
UConn first has to play Iona. This is a Rick Pitino coach team. They just look like a great Cinderella. They have players who can take over games. They have enough size where that is a very tempting upset to pick. And then if they get through that matchup, I think they'll have to play VCU, who plays just
I have VCU as well.
Absolutely incredible defense. They're on a tear too. They haven't lost an A10 game in forever, really. They just tore through the schedule. I don't know. It's just for UConn to play Iona, VCU, and then Kansas. Like, what are the odds that they get out of that matchup? I don't know. I mean, they beat Marquette pretty comfortably early in the year, and we all know I'm high on Marquette. And then their loss in them was very good. So this region is pure chaos. I could see about 6 or 7 teams, honestly, making the Final Four, including Northwestern, Davian. That's not an outrageous pick like Raffi thinks.
It's not outrageous. So it was just very far-fetched, in my personal opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love for it to happen. I'm not saying I don't want it to happen.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I'm going to have VCU coming out of that subsection and making the 16. Give me Kansas, Gonzaga in the Elite Eight, and give me the Gonzaga Bulldogs going to Houston, punching their ticket to the Final Four.
That, just like how my Michigan, Colorado State talk last year, which you can check out on our podcast, highly recommend. That made me feel very anxious because I was like, if Michigan wins that game, I don't know if Hunter Dickinson, I don't know if Tennessee can shut him down. And then we go into the Morgan Freeman like cutaway where everything goes to black, and they did not stop Hunter Dickinson.
Yeah.
They lost, and Raffi looked like a dingus for picking a 3 seed, winning it all. That's when I learned that do not have hope in Tennessee.
Davian had an 11 seed winning it all. Davian picked Rutgers to go all the way.
So. Yes.
I did.
But getting back to my point, I agree with you, Theodore, that Gonzaga is under the radar.
Mm-hmm.
I let my heart get in the way of my pick in that conference, in the West Coast Conference. You can check it out on our TikTok. And I said this. My heart says pick St. Mary's. My brain knew very well Gonzaga is not going to just lay down and just die this year.
Mm-hmm.
Gonzaga won, and they showed that they were the better team in the West Coast Conference.
St. Mary's peaked too early. I fully
They absolutely did. They have looked awful.
Now.
They're just not good, and I will continue to drag them through the grass and through the weeds. I don't like St. Mary's this year, and I hopefully they prove me wrong. Again,
I think VCU wins that game by a good 10 points tomorrow.
I really like VCU too. Gonzaga is a team, getting back to my Tennessee point, if Gonzaga plays UCLA, that is going to make me very, very nervous for my bracket, potentially. I feel like I'm kind of – we'll get into the Final Four picks in a second. You can see why I feel nervous about that.
Yeah.
UCLA is a bit dinged up. They're still a very deep team, but that game would definitely make me nervous. I think if UCLA gets out of that game, and I'm going to transition this into the Final Four now, UCLA will win the national championship. I have them beating Texas in the Final Four, which is a tough, tough game. This team, if UCLA can win the championship this year, it's going to be a movie or a documentary level success because the things that they've had to go through with their injuries, they're still a very solid team. And Theodore, you were absolutely right. This Western region is an absolute dogfight. And if UCLA can become that battle tested to make it to the Final Four, I see no problem with them potentially being able to knock off Texas and defeat the Alabama Crimson Tide again. Sorry, Theodore. In the national championship. Obviously, it's okay, Theodore. They'll win it next year, Alabama, so you'll have your moment and you'll be on campus.
Yeah, I can celebrate on campus, though.
But UCLA, you guys saw that I was starting to fall in love with them a couple of weeks ago. I really like this team, and I think they're going back to the Final Four again, and they're going to win and cut down the Nets in Houston.
Raffi, I respectfully disagree with you. I have Houston going to the finals, and I have Bama beating them. Roll Tide. That's what I see happening. Yes, I mean, in essence, I mean, it kind of makes sense. I have Houston beating Northwestern. I have Bama beating Kentucky in the Final Four. So, honestly, without me not picking, Bama, Houston for the finals, I think would be stupid. Not saying that my other picks are not stupid in some sense, but I think just Bama, Houston head-to-head, I see Bama just – with all the adversity that they really went through this year, I think they really unite and they just pull off the win. I don't see, I think this is a better pick than Rutgers last year. I think this is a pick. I think this is a pick backed up by evidence, and I'm sure Theodore can back me up.
Yeah, look, Alabama. Besides the fact that they have shooters, as we discussed last time.
As we discussed last week.
Yeah,
we do not condone of what occurred. Just want to put that out there again.
We do not. We absolutely do not. Yeah.
We did not.
It's crazy. I was driving down the street in Alabama, right? Like where all that stuff went down. It's like, wow, that is like this way I'm going to be on. It's a little crazy. Alabama, just my problem with them has been, I don't think they can play 40 minutes of basketball. I think that they rely way too much on late game runs. I mean, like they'll get into like a 12-point hole so many times where they have to surge ahead late, and against a really good team like an Arizona or a Creighton, if they play the way I think they can, or even a San Diego State, that's not something you can afford to do. Or even like a Bob Huggins West Virginia team, like they're not going to allow you to pull off a comeback with like 3 minutes left.
Right.
So in picking Alabama, I'm relying on them to actually be able to play full basketball like they did against Texas A&M. And I think they're capable of it. I really do now. So I'm going to pick them over Marquette in that first Final Four game, and they are going to move on to take on Gonzaga for a national championship. Look, Last year, did I pick Gonzaga to win it all? Yes. In 2021, did I? Yes. In 2020, I can guarantee you I would have picked Gonzaga to win. And in 2019, yes, I did pick Gonzaga. In 2018, I picked Virginia, by the way, and they lost to UMBC. So that was the worst pick of all time.
Should have
But
gone with Gonzaga.
I should have went with Gonzaga. Yeah, it would have looked better at least. The fact of the matter is, I've gotten burned so many times on picking Gonzaga. This team just feels different. Like I said earlier, every year they're just those crazy expectations put on this team, and this year it's like most people are expecting them to be like a Sweet 16 exit. So I feel like with the pressure off, with the tension away from them, they can finally put together a run. Drew Timme has been as good as always. Andrew Nemhard balling out.
No way.
They got enough pieces to defeat my future college,
No
Alabama,
way.
in the national championship.
No way. No way.
Before I close the show, because we're running a bit long, but then again, when we're having good conversation, I don't care how long the podcast goes, and we hope you enjoyed the entire podcast. My final thought before I close the show is if Gonzaga
Roll Tide.
was not in the same region as UCLA, I'd be very tempted to have Gonzaga go on a deeper run, especially if they were in the East. Unfortunately, they're not. That's just how they made the bracket. I don't make the bracket. I'd love to one day make the bracket, but it's not my responsibility. That's a very good take, Theodore. We hope you enjoyed this edition of the Benchwarmer Source podcast. Once again, we ran a little bit long, but
Roll
that's
Tide.
perfectly fine. Who would have guessed that David would be the person that picked Alabama all the way? I wasn't expecting that. Anywho, I can't wait for all of our brackets to be busted after the first couple of games. I hope all of you guys have the best of luck making your brackets. For Theodore, for David, I'm Raffi. We hope you enjoyed. Be sure to follow us on TikTok, Benchwarmer_sports. We're over at 1,100 followers right now, so you guys are going to want to hop on that wagon.
We're just cruising right now.
The ride will not be stopping anytime soon, and be sure to subscribe to our channel on YouTube. So once again, have a great rest of your day. Let the madness begin.
Roll Tide. Peace.
Roll Tide.